Everybody, good afternoon, our Facebook audience. Good afternoon, everyone who is here with me today. We are still in the spirit of celebrating women for International Women's Day 2025. And the theme for this year's celebration, like we all know, is accelerate action. So, from our conversation, from our discussion on Friday, we are still going to continue from where we stopped, right? Because the topic of gender equality cannot be finished. In fact, in a month, it cannot be finished. And since this month is for celebrating women, we are going to continually talk about how women can accelerate action towards gender equality. So, for the first discussion we have, we'll look at how we can how the issue of accelerate action can be assessed for women in the rural areas when it comes to financial stability, entrepreneurship, and digital skills.
Okay, are we talking about the barriers?
Yes, yes, the barriers, the extent of access that they have, the women in the rural areas and the women in the urban
Okay,
areas.
and the barriers to those
Yes, those
access.
accesses, yes.
Uh, I think there's a kind of structural violence against women embedded in the culture in our rural communities.
Yeah.
The culture dictates that women should always listen to their husbands, and it implies that they are under authority. If the male says that they are not doing anything, then they are not doing anything. So this poses a kind of challenge to their development in terms of financial capacity,
Yeah. Entrepreneurship.
entrepreneurship, overall economic empowerment, and their ability to access opportunity like technological initiative and development. So I think if we can address the issue of structural violence that is embedded in the culture, let's say, for example, a development initiative is coming to a community. Uh, the the culture says that women should sit at the back and let the male let them go forward.
Front.
Then the male will now give the women a feedback,
Feedback.
whether the feedback will favor them or not. And in that way, the women are not included. Are you getting what I'm saying? They are not included in the developmental process. So it actually affects women. It's actually a kind of barriers, trying to silence women not to partake in the development of communities. And that's a major barrier to that. Thank you.
Okay, for issue of culture, I think it has been overflowed to for a long time. We've said it over and over again. It seems to pose a major challenge, like it's the root cause. So, how do you think we can better approach the issue of culture? Like you said, violence against women from the culture perspective.
Well, oh, I don't think it's something that can be done in a day. In other words, it's not. It should be a long-time initiative
Plan.
and project. Because when we are talking about the African culture in this context, we are talking about a kind of mentality that has been existing for ages. And you can't just come and say, oh, you want to change this mentality just in 1 month. You want to change it in 1 year. It boils down to a lot of education, sensitization, policy implementation from the government. And it also boils down to several collaboration between community leaders, the traditional rulers, community development committees, the non-government organizations, and other members of the civil society organizations, and also the government implementing policy to support this effort.
Okay, so for talking about policies and these institutions, what actionable steps do you think that we can see or they have done so far to ensure that I'm just focusing on women in the rural area, right, in this perspective, so that we ensure that these women have access to these things that can help them take actionable steps, because remember we are looking at accelerating action. So if we have things in place, what action have been done so far, and what do you think can also be done to ensure that like you said, it cannot be done in a day, it's a continuous process.
Well, on the part of the NGOs, we must have seen several initiatives
Yeah.
in the rural communities, uh, working to empower women so that they can be economically empowered, so that they can be reliable and responsible to their family. We've heard of several initiatives on the entrepreneurships in the rural area. However, this initiative may not be enough. We'll need a kind of a mass collaboration between amongst the stakeholders I mentioned, to make sure that the issue of addressing gender inequality is accelerated. Thank you.
Okay, Victoria, let's look at sustainability because so far we know we've been putting in the work, right? So, how sustainable has the work done that has been done so far? How do we think it is? Because it is one thing to start something, and over time, is it still being upheld? And what efforts are, in this case, the women in the rural area? So, for the access and the level of projects that have been done specifically in the rural areas to provide women this access, what form of sustainability do they have so far?
Okay, based on the training some of them have gotten from this from the rural areas, there's a kind of sustainability because the same people who we have trained are also coming out. For example, they are moving to the urban areas, and so it continues like that. The more the training, the more the empowerment, the more we see persons too shifting and also giving back from what they have also been empowered and what their skills and what they have also learned.
Okay, so for emphasis sake, can you help us highlight maybe success stories of women who have been through this process, who have been able to, in quotes, break the barrier?
Okay, we have so many women who have broken from these barriers and they are taking so many leadership roles, even down to our NGOs. We have executives who are women, and so they've broken out of these barriers. And also in our policy making, we are seeing that women are beginning to take some roles. The only thing is we need to push further because it's not that the woman is there, but she should also participate in the
Decision
decision
making.
making. Thank
Okay,
you.
so let's look at the issue of technology. So in today's world, we can't do anything without talking about technology. Technology has taken over everything. So if we are talking about education for women, if we're talking about sensitization and gender equality for women, we cannot do it without talking about technology. Good thing we have this campaign for women in the area of STEM, women and girls in the area of STEM. So how do you think women, again, in the rural areas have access to technology, at least to utilize it for financial purposes, for entrepreneurship, and majorly the digital skills? Famous.
Are you asking how you think they
The
will, the
level
level?
of push
Yeah.
and sensitization they have in the when it comes to the area of technology.
Yeah, it might be difficult for us to know why, because we are in the social media age, whereby you will see people in the rural area using social media. You see them on TikTok, and but if you are not careful, you will think that there is a high level of orientation,
Yeah.
there is a high level of knowledge concerning technology. However, you will discover that most of these people from the women from the rural area, they just know how to use the social media. That's why you see some of them will just come and be talking and
And they
everything.
just
So,
have the phones.
yes, somebody will say that my grandmother can use social media. So it's just as if anybody. So the fact that you know how to use social media does not imply that you are technologically oriented. You know, somebody can tell you, open Facebook and just say something and close. You get
Yeah.
views, you get followers and everything. So I'm talking of women being intentional on how
Intentional
to leverage technology to upscale their business, to improve,
career.
yeah, their career, to improve their services, and also they can go global from the local perspective. So I think there's no data to back that up, but I think there's a low level of knowledge or technical capacity on how women can actually leverage technology with intention to upscale their business from the rural area.
What do you think? What do you think may be causing the low turnout for those women in the rural areas, like the root cause, the challenges they have, the barriers from the women perspective in those rural areas? What challenges do they face in, of course, providing and gaining value when
Yeah.
it comes to
Technology.
technology?
Okay.
Yeah.
I, I will said it before. The issue of culture is there. You know, there's this kind of behavior that comes from men when women wants to go viral. Maybe they want to be successful, and the culture dictates that the woman should always respect the man. So when the woman is trying to thrive in that aspect that we are discussing now, and the man is there, there's a very high tendency that that kind of cultural rules can still come to play and limit the woman instead of the woman exploring, are you getting it now, and becoming a global champion from the local perspective. So it still boils down to what? To education, sensitization, policy making from the government,
Collaboration.
enforcing some rules and regulations, and try to conscientize the women that their destiny does not really hang in their husband's house, that they can also explore and also become a tool for development. So I think that should be addressed from the sensitization perspective and educational perspective also, and we can also flow through the culture. So when that is done, I think the women will be free to some extent to explore themselves from the yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's
Yes,
true.
and another thing for the women too, even after having that kind of opportunity, some of them still have fear in them. You know, they are still like, oh, are you sure I can do this? Are you sure? Even if the husband allows
Self-doubt.
them, they still have the self doubt and all that. So, as women, we still need to understand and have that confidence in ourselves that yes, we can do it, and see, have our role models as women and say, oh, if this person can do it, I too can do it.
Let us try to bring men in the center of this, because
Okay.
men are still the pillar
Yeah,
of
yes.
yes. So what do you think is the standpoint of men at the moment, and what do you think men should be doing? Because I feel like in as much as we're talking about gender equality, I don't think it's something that we can make major headways in if we don't involve men, because they are still core part of the society. I mean, so what do you think is the main perspective when it comes to gender equality?
Okay, so let me allow you now.
Okay. From the men perspective, in the rural area,
Yeah.
which is a very rigid situation there. When the authority lies in the men, it has been like that in the African traditional setting, the cultural setting. So, and that kind of culture and mentality still plays in those local communities. Are you getting it now?
Yeah.
You know, for example, like we went for a stakeholders engagement in a community. We are supposed to implement a project on digital literacy training for what?
Women.
For women. You know, among the stakeholders, women are supposed to be included, but they ask women to stay
Outside.
outside. But the project is actually meant for women, but men they want to have the first
See.
say, so that we are the one that actually brought this information to you. So they have to silence the women, which is very very wrong. Women should be included in the developmental process of every communities before we can be sure that things will develop. Because women also have their own insights. They have their children. They also have focus. They also have dreams of where their children should be in future. So by the time you include them in these processes, then you are trying to enshrine them into the system, and that they can also be a source of information to their children back home, because most men don't really relate with their children.
Yeah.
Yeah. After they get the information they are working to get, it's possible they get home. When they get home, they begin to frown. Is that because there's no money or whatsoever? But a woman can easily relay information. Yeah, and that is why they are very very important as a major stakeholders in the development of any community. When we talk about gender equality, and development. Yeah.
Okay, very cute.
Okay. So another thing I think from for the younger generation coming up, we also need to sensitize them. We need to educate them,
The
the
boys.
boys as they grow. We need to also educate them, and they begin to understand. Just like before there was an era where we did not have phones, and now we have phones. So gradually, as we begin to teach them, educate them, they also grow, and gradually we get a better opportunity for women. Thank you.
Okay, the thing is, I don't think we can talk about technology without talking about the devices.
Yes.
Yes, and for even after gaining the skills and the knowledge, you need the devices to be able to keep yourself in pay and keep on with the trend. I mean, there was a time when it was BlackBerry. There was the in thing. Now you can't even find someone using it. It has lost its value. There was a time when it was just phones that can take pictures. Now people get devices based on the quality of the picture that you can get from these devices, down to the laptops and their capacity. So how do you think? Because talking about bringing women into the technology space, the digital skills and all that, we also have to look at, do they have the capacity to access these devices? Considering that in our current economy, it is a luxury per se. So how do you think, and since we are looking at women in the rural areas, how do you think we can cater for them when it comes to access to these devices?
Okay. Oh, thank you very much. We're talking about making these digital devices available for the women in the rural area. Uh, it might be a very difficult thing because there's a difference between you perceiving that the women in the rural area need these devices, and the women also perceiving that they need it. If you perceive that they need these devices and you go ahead to implement the project, we have had cases whereby we've heard of cases whereby NGOs go to a certain community to implement project. At the end of the day, they come out and they say that this is not what we need. And you get what I'm saying now. So it is very important for us to conduct a needs assessment if the
Access
women
them.
are actually ready to forge ahead and take a lead role in the development of the communities. From there, we'll know that they actually need these devices. And we also need to conduct an assessment of their orientation about the social media thing, because if that is not taken care of, you distributing these devices may think, oh, it is time for us to start using good phones and be doing TikTok and every other things. So they need to understand that they need to be intentional about the
Intentional.
developmental process. So I think by so doing, the government should will be ready to fund the devices and distribute it to women that are intentional about how to take their business global and their services global. And if the device is being distributed to them, it will help them a lot to grow. So,
Okay, like he rightly said, the conversation about gender equality cannot be talked about in a day, and it cannot be addressed in a day. So for today, we are going to bring our discussion to a short close here today. And since we are still in the month of celebrating women, we will continually come and air our views and our opinion and discussions for women to ensure that gender equality is still a thing in play. And for us as at Talk Love Africa Foundation, we ensure that we bring women at the center of our activities, at the center of our projects. We have several projects that caters for women, the women livelihood program, and of course the digital skills training, which was targeted at women. And since we are still in the month of celebrating women in our own individual spaces, we can make efforts to ensure that the woman closest to us has the right motivation and the right space to break the barrier. And on that note, I want to say a happy International Women's Day to all women all over the world. And for today's conversation, I am Sophia Onovo, and I had with me.
Mrs. Victoria Ibute.
I'm Imosulu Atoye.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank